be here tonight. What a beautiful art. Give yourself some applause. You're so lovely. Everyone should love it. And while you're in the clapping mood, I'd like to give a big round of applause to my band.
I'm Marie.
I'm Lisa.
And we got Miko back there. Hey. And we have a special guest today. Awesome. We have Miss Ashley Long. Yeah?
Yes.
Ashley Long. She is a licensed master social worker and certified therapeutic recreation therapist. And she's here to help us with our conversation that we're having about childhood trauma. If you guys remember from the last show, at the end, we did talk about that we were going to be discussing childhood trauma today. And we put up a post asking for you guys to chime in regards to, like, if you've ever experienced, like, any childhood trauma. And, of course, a lot of us have. And so we just kind of felt like it was something that needed to be addressed. It was something that's, personal to us here at the show. But also, it's just something that, as a culture, I think that we need to deal with. So, I don't know what's happening. What's happening? So, one second.
Oh, it's opening. We gotta go through.
Are we
the whole
having
intro.
technical?
She's on the Cocotography page.
Oh.
We live.
On the 30 something.
We on YouTube.
Oh, so we just
Okay.
turn it off and cancel and we do another one.
Yeah, I would prefer.
It feels so lovely to be here tonight. What a beautiful art. Give yourself some applause. You're so lovely. Everyone should love it. And while you're in the clapping mood, I'd like to give a big round of applause to my band.
She's got her mics turned off. Oh, welcome to 30 Something Podcast. I am your host, Drea.
Hi, I'm Marie. And I'm Lisa.
And today we have a guest. It is Miss Ashley Long. Ashley Long is a licensed, I had to write it down because, you have to make sure that you get these credentials right. Ashley Long is a licensed master social worker and certified therapeutic recreation therapist. And she's here to help us with our conversation that we're having in a little bit in reference to childhood trauma. And we just really wanted to touch on it because we feel like, as a culture, it is something that we face, like, kind of on a day-to-day basis. It's something that we've experienced as children and also that our children are facing. But also there are poignant key moments that have happened in our lives that have been more traumatic than others. And we'll talk about that, maybe, like, share some personal experiences, but also just kind of get into, like, the psychology of it all. But first, we're going to talk about, we're going to have our What Now segment, right?
What now?
What we have in What Now? We have Cardi B. So, Cardi B has been indicted on 12 counts of assault. 2 of them are felonies, I know for sure. I had the story pulled up and then of course it went away because that's what things do when you're live on the air. So we're just going to roll with it. So she got into a fight last summer with 2 bartenders. I don't know if y'all remember. She was like one of the bartenders had allegedly, I think they were a set of twins, and one of the bartenders allegedly had like slept with Offset or something. So of course Cardi B was in a strip club wilding. She like hit somebody in the face with a bottle of champagne or something, slammed somebody's face into the bar. Like
She don't argue. She just hit that chick with a bottle.
Yeah, so that's exactly what
Cardi B.
happened. And now she is facing felony charges for fighting. So, and you know, I really find this interesting that you have all these incidents where people have bar fights and stuff and like nothing ever comes of it. But they have like these, when you're a celebrity, they'll definitely try to make like a
big old, yeah.
Oh, we're gonna make an example out of you. You don't get to like come to our club. You know, nobody cares about these two girls, these two dots that was working at the bar. But you know, they got a lawyer, and now it's a big deal. And
They lawyered up
right,
because they want that money.
right.
Exactly.
And I think in the
Cardi
I
might
remember
have to get those teeth back.
not her teeth.
If she gets sued and she lose all her money.
Yeah. She had one of them little Lambos. I heard she didn't have license anyway.
But Cardi ain't hurting though. So I mean, I feel like this ain't gonna hurt her too much. But she actually pled not guilty, and so she initially faced misdemeanor charges, and she was indicted by a grand jury on some felony charges. So, I'm pretty sure that this isn't going to land her in jail. I mean, if it does, I don't know. But yeah. So she rejected a plea deal in April, and so then she got indicted.
Now, was she actually involved in the fight, or did she pay somebody? I saw something, I think Page 6 reported that she allegedly hired some people to fight the girls.
So it was some other people involved in the fight,
Okay.
but she was definitely there, like, engaging while it was going on. Like, she was throwing glasses, she was throwing bottles, like, she was physically fighting. And especially, like, Cardi is just a hood chick, a hood stripper chick, like from the Bronx. Like that's definitely what she is. And
When she get out how she live.
right, like fighting is not beneath her. So I don't know. I'm not surprised by any of it.
What was the fight over?
Because one of the bartenders had slept with Offset, her husband.
You know, she's serious about her husband.
Right. Even
Oh, so
though-
is that when they broke up? That's when they broke up and everything.
I don't even
No,
know
that was like a
broke up.
different
No,
chick,
that
too.
was Summer Bunny. So Summer Bunny was from here.
Oh.
And she was a young girl. She was like 19. And so from Cedar Hill. And she was clout chasing like real hard. And Cardi was like really entertaining her online. But yeah, that was another Offset. That's when they broke up, and then he came back apologizing, being super corny when she was on stage, and he like rolled that big old box out there when she was trying to apologize to her while she was trying to perform, and she was like hella pissed that he did that.
She showed up to her job.
Yeah, don't come up to my job with that. But that's definitely.
But then she went to the stripper's job with that drama.
Well, she was
That's a little different. She like, that's
at the bar.
different.
I mean,
Yeah, and I think whatever it was like some kind of event that they
Aaron's
were
talking
doing.
about she going to jail.
They were doing
She's
like
going
some
straight
kinda,
to jail.
They called him
Or
right.
she going to be on house arrest.
Yeah, they were doing some kind of appearance or whatever. But you know how these girls are. Like, if they mess with your man, they're going to definitely be telling you, you know, or be all up in your face type situation. And I'm sure that just kind of sent her
I mean,
off
but she
edge.
already knew he was doing that from the other girl. So at this point, sis,
I don't know.
why are
which
you
one came
even
first.
fighting?
That's her husband.
I would be trying to beat my husband's ass. Like, I'm not
I mean,
going to be out here. Because think about it, every other week you fighting somebody else. I just need to whoop his ass one good time. Or I
Right.
need to just be cool about it and just, like make him pay for it.
Right.
Like, I don't.
I mean, then if she goes to jail,
Because I don't know what you look like continuously fighting over somebody.
Like, yeah, like every other week. It's like, every other week I got to
Right,
prove
fight
my
to
love to
prove
you. Like, so that's what we're not doing.
So, what else do we got for what now? We have the
Reparations.
yes.
The
So-
conversation.
Yes. So we have a clip, Marie.
Yes, we do have a clip.
Bom boy.
Bon voy.
Bon boy! Discover the new language of travel.
Bonvoy.
Marriott Bonvoy. 30 hotel brands, endless experiences, rewards, reimagined.
You know, worky.
Okay, so since the video's not working, we're gonna kind of read off some of the comments about the Cardi B situation because we missed them. Let me see. Stanton said, "My wife fights for real, for real. Let me keep it in my pants." In regards to Offset, I guess. And he said, "I'm pretty sure he has caught a jab or 3." He probably has. She probably done windmill him.
I can see
a few
her
times.
definitely.
Offset.
Right.
Why you cheating on me?
When she talk like that.
That's what her voice sounds like to me. Ew.
I don't know. I like Cardi. I'm always rooting for her. Nicki Minaj
She grew on
dropped
me.
that lame ass song this at the same time, like the same day that Cardi got indicted. Nicki Minaj dropped that song. What is it called?
With Trina?
I don't give her any play in my household. I feel like Nicki Minaj is a
She
hater.
done fell all the
Like
way
she's
off.
she's such a hater, not including she's dating that guy that's like the isn't he like a pedophile
Yeah,
or something like the child
child molester,
molester? But like she
likes
always
child
it's like she
molesters,
has
her
so
birthday
much
Oh,
like right
yeah.
unless she's
Allegedly.
used to that. But it's like she has so much. She's like a hater. Like she can't congratulate any other woman. She always feels so.
Well, it ain't even a
threatened.
woman. Like
It's
it's
like
even,
she
like
feels,
men.
Yeah,
'cause
she feels so threatened all the time. Where it's just kind of like, yeah.
You remember when Travis Scott dropped his album? She was like mad because his was #1 because Kylie was giving away digital copies with like her products that she was, and then also he was giving away digital copies. Like if you bought any T-shirts, he was giving away free digital copies, and she was totally hating on that, saying that he was like fudging the numbers, on trying to get more spins and more credit for his record being #1.
But it's like she's always watching somebody else, and as you see, her career has just gone drastically down. So that's like a lesson. Like, pay attention, focus on yourself.
Right.
Don't worry about the people around you, because they getting theirs, and you're not. You're not.
Johnson said Mega Trash.
Mega trash.
Yeah, the name of the song is Megatron that she dropped.
He said, Western said Megatron. I mean, Megatron.
So, is the video not working? No?
Need help paying for college? So does everyone. Strayer
Us not getting I want my reparations. Cash to buy pizza.
Support of reparations. How they felt that we should be owed reparations. But my question is always, okay, they give us reparations, but like, is it gonna be enough? How do we quantify? What does that mean? Because we only got one damn shot at this. They're not gonna go back and say, you know what, we owe you a little bit more.
Well, how did they decide?
I mean, they do that all the time for the Holocaust survivors. Like,
how did
why
they
would
decide who, spoke on behalf? Because for me, when I think about Danny Glover, I think about how he kept all of Whoopi Goldberg's letters in The Color Purple. It's so... So he ain't even did right by Whoopi. So how he gonna get us reparations?
She wasn't doing right by us anyway.
So I'm just trying to see, how do they choose who speaks on our behalf to decide? And then when they say, well, give it to the poorest.
Choosing is them
I feel like there should have been some economists going up there, you know, and then even presenting the data on a global level. Because even like, for example, like take Aruba, they were impacted by colonization. The Dutch actually brought slaves to Aruba. Despite the Spaniards being there first, the Dutch came, they brought the slaves, and that's how this.
Have they been given reparations?
Actually, so that's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
So, they have a program where they actually allow the locals to go to the Netherlands to study in school. They pay for that full ride, and then the rule, like they have some like rule where they have to come back and live in Aruba, like contribute to the economy for 3 years, and then they're free to go do whatever they want. And I think there may be some other perks as well. But going back to, and even the Dutch, they were the keepers of the slaves.
Yeah.
Like so, they gave the Portuguese slaves, they gave the Spaniards, they gave the British. So even to me, I think globally, that's a conversation. Period. And going back to even for the U.S. So who started the slave trade that brought us here? You know, we look at, there was like the Iberian slave trade, which primarily was in South America. But then going back to, then we have the one that was in the United States where the Spaniards did bring slaves, where the British did bring slaves. So it's like, well, no, we need y'all at the table too.
Right.
I'm going to need your money too.
But the conversation is always, well,
I'm gonna need your money.
we haven't,
Speak for
there is
yourself.
no one alive who is responsible for slavery.
Well, that's
so
what the
they
white
don't
people
feel
are
like
saying.
we should be owed any type of reparations. Who is it? The black guy?
Everyone
Wasn't
alive
Mitch
benefited
McConnell.
from
Who was
slavery,
it?
though.
Right.
It was some other black guy that felt like we shouldn't get reparations. My only thing is, if we're going to receive reparations, I just don't want you just throwing us $10,000 to $15,000 for us to shut up.
Oh, that
because
ain't.
that's not going to work. Because we just gonna blow it.
If you,
We
but
gonna
I
do the
mean,
same thing with that
even
when
if
we
you
do
look
our
at the
taxes.
wealth gap, just on a larger scale, $15,000, that ain't.
It's nothing, but I don't really feel like we'll ever get anything that's gonna close the wealth gap. Because if you close the wealth gap, then everything becomes null and void, right?
Right.
Like we're based on a caste system, and if you don't keep that in structure, if you don't keep that in place, and you give us the opportunity to win instead of them feeling like we just need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and work hard. That's the only thing that we need to do, right? And not acknowledging the disadvantages that we have right out the gate, then you give us that advantage, you give us that privilege, right? You give it to us, and what happens if we take it?
Then we're
What
ahead
happened
of
is-
them,
what
and
happens
then
if you
that's
close
not
the
what they
wealth
want.
gap?
I mean, but even then, I would think, like, being realistic, we can't change the minds of people, right? So there's still going to be this certain level of people, they're still going to mismanage the money. No different than lotto winners, right? So they win the lottery, they can win millions of dollars. 4 or 5 years later, they're flat broke.
But
So
yeah.
it's still, and going back to, they look forward to our demise anyway. So that being said, so there's going to be people
we
that are going to go,
spend
yeah,
so
we're,
much.
yes,
We are
we don't
consumers.
circulate money within our own
We
community.
are consumers.
But going back to, there's still going to be just like now. There's going to be people that are going to, do the right thing, and there's going to be people that aren't. But that doesn't mean that we still don't. You don't need to run us them coins.
Right. I'm just really concerned about. I just
Need
want to
them
know
chips.
what it really looks like, because you're not going to give us anything of value as it pertains to like land or something like that. I just don't feel like.
But
that's,
they want to give it
that's
all
gonna
to the
happen.
low income, and it's like, no.
I feel like like I said, how's it going to be quantified? Like, how do you determine who is the direct descendant of a slave versus
I know I am.
somebody who is one of Master's kids, or you know what I'm saying? Like, what? Like, how do you determine it? And
But-
we
but,
got
I mean,
so
but
much
if they-
race
but-
mixing going on now. Like, do you say, well,
Or then
you
too,
half
when did
white,
you
so
come
only
into
get half the check?
this? When did you come into the
Exactly.
United States?
They
But
only
then,
get half the check.
like, so first of all, that's not going to be the case.
Marie, you only get half. You're
So
not
no,
getting a whole.
so no. So look, then at that point, I'm like, well, you actually didn't even experience slavery. Your ancestors were here before then. But even too, what we do as far as also when we look at some of the Native American nations, they were slaveholders. They even were paid money to release the slaves because 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, they still had slaves.
Right.
The government had to say, we're going to give you some money. Can you please let them go?
Right,
And
and
these
so-
are a lot of
I'll
folks
tell you
running around
one
talking about
thing,
their
you
Cherokee.
can't tell an Indian to do shit. They couldn't enslave them. You cannot tell an Indian to do nothing. Like, they would literally just sit down on your ass. Nope, ain't doing it. It ain't happening.
But then it's like, should they pay too?
They
Some of those
literally
wealthy
had to
nations.
eradicate them with germ warfare. Like, you can't control an Indian. That's crazy.
Because they spiritual.
Right.
The universe.
I think that's our cue for a commercial.
So we'll be back after this break, and then we'll get into talking about childhood trauma.
Been a lot of changes, some niggas be hating, but you gotta keep one eye open, 'cause they might try to steal your moments. Don't let them count you out, yeah, don't let them bring you down. Oh, boy.
Been through it, went through it, knew that I could do it. When term get used loosely, usually it's confusion. Caught in the attraction, bragging about lavish fashion. Been having it since back then and never be a has-been. Loved by few, but mostly cause I'm different. You can be getting it how I'm getting it, but you busy chasing bitches. Clean the look up, clean the books up. Now look where this done took us, back to back with the good luck. Now watch us when we pull up. You know my takeaway, heavyweight the dinner plate, but never say anything that just may incriminate the fashion that we move. Cancun, we in canoes. Back home, niggas confused, trying to analyze our moves. See, I shine without the phony rollies in the 40 homies that's gon' always turn on me when I'm running out of money. Look, gotta be his whip. I seen them flying through the cliff. Gun sprayers through you naysayers, they ain't saying shit.
Riding down the street in my neighborhood, been a lot of changes. Some niggas be hating, but you gotta keep one eye open, 'cause they might try to steal your moments. Don't let them count you out, yeah, don't let them bring you down. Oh, boy.
They tried to do me in, thought I would lose again, but all seasons have an end. It's finished finito. Me and mine don't pretend capping's illegal. This reality, we suffer casualties. Depression pushed me out the pocket, try to tackle me, but I'm sag proof. Check out the lab roof, it's panoramic. My elevation is God granted. The sad news is cash rules most of the planet, but I'm chosen, set aside for a greater cause. I fade them all, couldn't stop me if you made a wall. Self-destructive discussions, I learned to make them pause. These new levels, confused devils and idle talk. Get up and go get it, yeah, that's the ticket, huh? My favorite waking up haters, it got them living, huh? I'm never folding, no breaking, so just forget it, huh? When you see us, we rollin', hustling like Nipsey, huh?
A dollar for your dreams, making a way by any means. You gotta follow the road less traveled. Life ain't what it seems. Now walk on easy street, making a way by any means. You have to go down the road less traveled. Hey, yeah. Riding down the street in my neighborhood, been a lot of changes. Some niggas be hating, but you gotta keep one eye open, 'cause they might try to steal your moments. Don't let them count you out, yeah, don't let them bring you down. Oh, boy.
Song changes. Guys, go out and support him when you guys get a chance. And our special guest in the building to sharing the discussion on childhood trauma is specializing in therapeutic trauma as well. And she'll be joining in on the conversation. While we were on break, we kind of broke into the conversation about childhood trauma and the traumas of slavery.
Right.
I think that's kind of an interesting piece as far as we wrap it around to childhood trauma, because when you think about it, those who, were former slaves, when they start raising their children and then their children start raising their children, there had to be a lot of childhood trauma and effects just from the ramifications of slavery.
Yeah, I feel like we really got like some PTSD as a culture
Right.
that we pass down generationally, knowingly, unknowingly. I mean, even like if you want to take it that deep and just go into like the food, Miko, she always makes fun of me and say, "Oh, I be cooking at slave food," but that's exactly what it is. Like, and it's something that we've nurtured into our culture, and it's not healthy, right? But it's something that we've nurtured, taking like the least of such, you know, all
And
of the
making it
scraps and making it work. Knowing, you know, that and knowing it's not good for you, but still consuming it because it's just a nostalgia.
It's what we've
something
always
that makes
done,
us
too.
feel good, right? It's something that we've always done, even though we know it's not good. But we passed that down generationally. So now I got to think about, well, damn, maybe I need to go into Whole Foods and like, you know, maybe
That ain't the same mac and cheese.
It ain't.
But, I mean, when you know better, you do better.
Right.
I don't know,
You maybe use some skim milk this time instead of the whole
That's
milk.
funny.
We shouldn't even have milk. Most black people are lactose intolerant.
We are.
As well as Native Americans. We shouldn't even be consuming milk or cheese. Because
Why are we lactose
I mean,
intolerant?
it's just genetics.
Genetics.
And we most African Americans can't even process lactose properly. So we shouldn't even be drinking cow's milk.
Right.
I mean, we're like one of the only species that drinks another species' milk.
Yeah,
It doesn't
it
even make
is.
sense to me. I mean, I'm guilty because I like cheese, but you know, I'm kind of being a little.
Y'all love cheese.
You know,
And it's like the older I get,
But
the
I
more
like
my
it,
body
though.
like rejects.
But
Yeah, but her job, her body rejects everything.
It's like, I used to have that iron stomach. Now it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what's in there?
It's like, see, you just gonna eat a whole plate of macaroni and cheese? I bet you ain't gonna sleep tonight.
I don't know. That made me laugh because I had a girlfriend. She won't eat grits. And she was like, I'm not going to eat grits, you know, just because my ancestors did it. She was like, me not eating grits is living their wildest dreams. And then we had to laugh, though, because I'm like, well, I think adding shrimp and Gouda cheese to my grits is actually living my ancestors' wildest dreams. Like, they ain't never had that.
Right.
So,
So, Drea, you pulled some interesting facts on childhood trauma. Share them with us, please.
So, when we were talking about childhood trauma, like I said, like there's a full gamut of childhood trauma that you can experience. It especially like as do with like things that we have to go through day to day, being black. I was talking earlier how a lot of times we don't even know that what we're experiencing is trauma just because it's so normal to us.
It's normal.
Like growing up as inner city youth and like having to ride a bus with no air conditioner, right? And like having a computer lab where only 2 or 3 computers working. Like we get so used to like things being fucked up that we don't even realize that it's fucked. And then like you go to up north and go just like, damn, they got a nice auditorium. They got the little drop down thing with the this is nice.
It's real nice. You're like, it's nice.
Right. It's just
Fancy.
exposure and opportunity and things of that sort. Like that can traumatize you. Like not being not having those advantages.
Our bus driver used to cuss us out in high school.
Well, y'all probably needed it.
No, we didn't. You better move so my daughter can sit in that seat.
But I
She
mean,
cussed me out real
there's
hard one
trauma
time.
like that, and then there's
I was
trauma
really
that we experience as a child. Like of course, like sexual abuse, physical abuse in the home. I know a lot of times, like in our culture, we experience anger as a negative emotion, right? Like a lot of us don't know how to process emotion, especially our males, because that's a lot of times that's the only emotion that they know how to express is anger, and it comes out violently, and so we become like victims of that as children, and because we see that,
Children and adults.
yeah, and so we just process things. But I have 4 ways that childhood trauma impacts adults. One way is the false self. As children, we want our parents to love us and take care of us, and when our parents don't do this, we try to become the kind of child we think they'll love. We bury feelings that might get in the way of us getting our needs met. We create a false self, the person that we want to present to the world. And when we bury these emotions, we lose touch with who we really are, because our feelings are an integral part of us. We live our lives terrified that if we let the mask drop, we'll no longer be cared for, loved, or accepted.
And the worst part about that, piggybacking on that, those kids, they don't end up hating their parents. They hate themselves. And that's like the devastating part, because they're going to carry that for the rest of their lives.
That's very true. I mean, I think I personally, even in my situation, we respect, like, I always thought that you had to be perfect because we weren't allowed to bring home C's.
Right.
Like, if I got an A or B, like straight A's, you know, everybody else may get a pizza party. I'm like, oh, that's normal. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So I've always been a quote unquote overachiever all my life because I thought you'd have to be perfect. My parents, they weren't like, it was like we're gonna get beat because we didn't bring home straight A's, but it was just that's the expectation, and that's not always realistic. And I just realized over time that I put this stress on myself to always be perfect, to always be presentable, to always be what people wanted me to be. So when I turned like 31, I just kind of like had this epiphany, like, man, I just want to be happy. So I started doing shit that made me feel good.
Right.
So I've been the serial entrepreneur, like in my 30s. I started like 15 different businesses probably. And when I get bored or if it fails, I just let it go and do something else. And I mean, there have been people who supported me, people like, what's she doing now? But it just makes me feel good, so I do it. And I feel like I'm being authentically me now. So that's definitely true that we do become our false selves, like Paul Lawrence. Belmar says we wear the mask.
Right. And the second point that they have here is victimhood thinking. We think and believe about ourselves. What we think and believe about ourselves drives our self-talk. The way we talk to ourselves can empower or disempower us. Negative self-talk disempowers us and makes us feel like we have no control over our lives like victims. We may have been victimized as children, but we don't have to remain victims as adults. When children grow up in households where there are only unhealthy expressions of anger, they grow up believing that anger is unacceptable. If you witness anger expressed violently, then as an adult you might think that anger is a violent emotion and therefore must be suppressed. Or if you grew up in a family that suppressed anger and your parents taught you that anger is on a list of emotions you're not supposed to feel, you suppress it, even though as an adult you could benefit from expressing your anger. Right. And also the last point that they had was passivity. If you were neglected as a child or abandoned by your caretakers, you might have buried your anger and fear in the hope that it would mean no one will ever abandon or neglect you again. What happens when children do this is we end up abandoning ourselves. We hold ourselves back and we don't feel our feelings. We end up passive and we don't live up to our potential. The passive person says to him or herself, I know what I need to do, but I don't do it. And when we bury our feelings, we bury who we are because of childhood emotional trauma. We may have learned to hide parts of ourselves at the time that may have helped us, but as adults we need our feelings to tell us who we are and what we want and to guide us toward becoming the people that we want to be. So Lisa, did you want to reintroduce our guest again, and then you can kind of give us like some background as to what you do? And
guys, Ashley Long is in the building, and again, as prior mentioned, for those just tuning in, she is a licensed master social worker, and she also is certified in therapeutic recreational specialist. So she's just going to kind of chime in with us her experiences working in her field, and just give us some things to think about and some ideas to take with us on how to address childhood trauma if we've experienced it as children and it's gone unaddressed, or even if we have our own children that we kind of want to get help for as well, or family and friends. Ashley?
Okay, so thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. You're welcome. So, I guess a little bit about me. I'm originally from Louisiana.
Okay.
I am from North Louisiana. I'm from a small town called Vivian.
Okay.
It's outside Shreveport.
Okay.
I attended undergrad at Grambling State University, where
GSU.
Yes, the place where everybody is somebody.
That's where my son is going.
Okay, come on, Brown fam. I got my undergraduate degree in leisure studies with a concentration in therapeutic recreation, and I also got a master's at Grambling in public administration. My concentrations were human resource management and health services administration. My background in working is that I have, for the last 10 years, worked on my own therapy company here in Dallas. Recently, I just graduated again with a second master's from University of Texas at Arlington, got a master's in social work, and I just passed my exam. So now I'm a licensed master social worker.
Ma'am.
So
we got more degrees than them.
I know, I got a lot of degrees, you know. Lots of
black
them.
girls.
They, you know, they say black women are the most educated population in the United States. So.
Yes, indeed.
But my background as far as my work is concerned is that I do provide recreational therapy services here in the Dallas Metroplex. We also provide music therapy, we provide aquatic therapy and massage therapy to children and adults who have developmental disabilities as well as mental illnesses.
That's awesome.
So we go into their homes and we provide services to keep them from going into long-term care facilities. We try to help them function in the community, teach them life skills, things that what most people, I hate the word normal people, consider, you know, we take for granted on a day-to-day basis. I like to use the word typical people, use on a day-to-day basis. We teach them how to function in this typical world.
Yeah, I used to work at Denton State Supported Living Center, and so we would like teach them how to use like adaptive equipment and things like that, so like weighted hand spoons and like things we take for granted, like being able to turn the TV channel and things
tie
like
your
that.
shoes, wash your hair.
Right.
You know, that can be a real big ordeal.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw in to our viewers and listeners, one of the reasons why it's important to have Ashley sitting here with us is so that you guys see that people who look just like us are, you know, within our same age range, are experienced, and they specialize and are certified and credentialed, because what we don't want to do is to just sit here and just give our opinions. We want to have expert panelists share with us so that you guys, you know, can see the value in 30-something podcasts. I just want to throw that in real quick. So, Ashley, I have a question for you. When we speak on childhood trauma, how can childhood trauma, like for a parent, say for instance, who has maybe experienced violence, how does that childhood trauma, maybe like physical violence, how does that affect them when they become a parent? Are they more likely to impose that same type of behavior toward their children?
Well, statistics say that if you have been abused, then sometimes you will become an abuser. But there's also the opposite end of the spectrum, where that parent doesn't want their child to ever go through what they go through, what they've gone through. So then they become the overprotective parent, where they don't let the child do anything and they don't trust the world. So then they pass that on to the child, where the child has trust issues now.
Oh, trust issues. So that's something, because I know myself, I have trust issues. Caleb just turned 13, and I was telling the guys off camera a few weeks ago was probably the first time I let him spend the night over a non-family member's house, and that was Kamiko's house, so I actually consider her a family member. But that was just because of my prior experiences growing up as a child. I just don't trust people from my own experiences, and I don't trust people around my children. So I don't want to give off that, you know, not trusting people, but I don't want them to be naive either. So how do you find that balance?
Well,
as
the
a
first
parent?
thing I would say, you have to talk to your children, let them know what's acceptable and non-acceptable. There's kind of, although it's not directly answering your question, is there like these baby dolls they have now, they have like the penis and the vagina, that they're anatomically correct. We have to start teaching our children, especially in our community, because we call it a pocketbook,
But we ain't talking about how important that is to having that conversation.
We need to start having that conversation. It's a penis and it's a vagina.
Right.
So we need to start them young, telling them, hey, don't let somebody touch your, nobody is allowed to touch your penis.
Right.
Nobody's allowed to touch your vagina.
Like my mom
You
used
know.
to say in privates.
Right, it's your privates. Yeah.
Privates.
Right. So we
It's
need to start having those conversations so that they know that that is not a safe touch, it's not a good touch. If somebody touches you there, you know, we have to go to court, you know, because somebody molested your child. At this point, you're like, you know, well, he touched my pocketbook. Well, pocketbook's a purse. You know, pocketbook is so many things. But you say, he touched my vagina.
Right.
And you,
It's
4 years old,
Yeah.
they touched your vagina.
I don't know
You
how
know?
to, because I got a 2-year-old, and I mean, at what age do you start?
You start
She was
when
walking
they-
around the house
when
with
she learns
my
the
vagina.
words.
You like,
Yeah.
Right.
Because she
like
definitely would.
vagina, like, well, at least we know she knows. But
She
no,
knows,
he
but-
touched my vagina. You like,
That goes to
Mommy vagina?
you need
So-
we need to start normalizing those things, because
Right.
like it's kind of, you know, we're kind of joking about it, but it's a serious thing.
Right.
Is that because the people are touching these kids,
Right.
So we don't need to teach them that. Oh, it's your private, it's your whatever little cute, your cookie, your nookie, or whatever you call
like
it.
TT. You like,
It's your vagina and it's
Right.
your penis and it's your anus.
Right.
Because these people out here touching these kids, and when you go and take them and you try to report it, and they're saying, then, you know, it's a dope word versus a child's word.
Right.
But no 2-year-old is going to say a vagina if it's not a vagina.
And lawyers, and I have to speak on this situation from middle school. There was this pervert. He went to the high school, and he would come to the middle school. And he actually...
And I mixed up?
Yes, I went to court for this. I was a witness, and there was another young lady. I'm not going to say her name. But I was only 13. And when I say this lawyer jumped on me as far as verbally attacking what I was saying, and I was like... Oh, I got mad. I was like, I don't have no reason to lie on him. And I was very upset because he kept calling me a liar. And, you know, the boy had a history. I'm not going to say his name.
Girl, you gotta say me.
I will. But at any rate, I just don't want to get sued. Otherwise, I will say his name if it's true. And he has, there is findings. Okay. He's been charged for all the stuff that I'm talking about. But at any rate, to just speak to what Ashley was saying, you do have to let children know what these exact body parts are, because once they go to court, there's no sympathy from that defense attorney that this is a child and that this child has experienced this type of trauma. And I know that from my own experience is that the lawyer was just adamant that, you know, no, you're lying. And asking me details about his client's body parts, and I wasn't comfortable saying, you know, the things that I saw. So he tried to use that to say, well, she can't be telling the truth. However, it was myself and I think about 2 other girls who witnessed it. And I mean, I told immediately. I literally turned around, went back in the school and called somebody in the school and said, hey, this is what's happening out here. It was right in front of, you know, those long steps we had in front of Atwell. And he was just comfortable, pull his
in front of the school?
Penis out, like Ashley told us.
He would it out. His pride.
I was gonna say thing, but he pulled it out and he masturbated. He masturbated after he tried to like get several. No, he was in high school. He went to Carter, so he tried to talk to the girls, knowing they were in middle school.
Right.
And he used to hang out around Adele Turner and Atwell, and so I agree with what you're saying, and I'm using my experience so that people know this is important that you tell your kids the right body parts, because like you said, they will go to court and lawyers will not have any mercy on the fact that you're a child. Briefly, Floyd gave us a comment. He says he thinks our culture becomes accustomed to certain things and it's passed down from generation to generation. And certain things that you teach your kids not to do, they pick it up from others that's not taught your family way. And peer pressure is what he's saying. So he's saying sometimes you can teach your children the right things, but then they experience peer pressure that influences them, and it affects them.
I feel like when it comes down to our kids, like once you plant a seed, it kind of doesn't even matter what happens after that, right? Because even if they do stray away and they do start, you know, moving in with peer pressure or whatever, like that seed is still planted.
Exactly.
And it's always going to come back to, well, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel, you know what I'm saying? It didn't feel natural and normal to them. So I feel like, yeah, maybe in some instances, some kids do succumb to peer pressure. I do see some really good parents out there who have kids, and it's like, she's a really good mom. Why is this kid so horrible? So you do have instances where the kids are just really bad, and like it may be some other catalyst that's causing the issue. But at the same token, I really feel like if you're focused on parenting your child and you're focused on planting those seeds, that even when they stray away, they aren't going to go too far.
My only concern is, I mean, I see that, but then too, I feel like there are those passive children. So going back to when we fall back into peer pressure, it wasn't too long ago where a young lady was peer pressured into doing something and then turned around, went home and jumped off the building and killed herself. So it's kind of like,
peer pressure into doing?
She was peer pressure, I think, into giving
oral
fellatio
sex
to two students, and then she literally went home and just killed herself. She actually went to the counselor.
Well, she was sexually assaulted then, right?
I mean, but then going back to and I'm sure in her mind she still did it. She chose to do it, and that's the thing too. Sometimes kids are afraid to say no.
But I still in my head consider that sexual assault, right? Like if you're doing something that you feel like you're coerced to doing, even if you're not kicking and screaming and saying, no, I don't want to do it. You're aware that you're not wanting to do it, and you're expressing that you don't want to do it, even if you still go along with it, you're still being assaulted.
That goes to the big talk about consent now.
Right.
That we're having.
Oh,
right.
Where my post at?
So, you know, we are not teaching children what consent means.
Right.
You know, I mean, I've had situations in my life where, you know, you just kind of went with it. You didn't say no, but you didn't say yes either.
Right.
And I'm an adult, you know.
Right.
Exactly.
So we have to just instill in our children, we have to start these talks early in our culture. Just, this is a rape culture that we live in.
Listen.
Like, it's
And
okay
we
to
have
say
just
no.
instill in them that consent is, yes, I want to give you fellatio. Yes, I want to have sex with you. Yes, I want you to touch me. Yes, I want you to kiss me. Yes, I want you to grope me. Whatever it is you want to say. Yes, I want
and
to.
I feel the same way too. I put up a post. Was it Saturday? Saturday, I put up a post. I'm gonna read the responses to this post because these is y'all mama sons out here.
Well, we was gonna have a show on that next week.
Well, no, while she's doing that, we have a question from the audience about being in a relationship with someone who's experienced childhood trauma.
Yeah, answer that for us, Ashley.
So that's a loaded question.
That could be problematic.
Because trauma manifests in every person differently. You know, like she said, some people, it comes out in, you know, anger and violence. Some people, it comes out in just being depressed, you know, passive, withdrawn, things like that. So with that, if you're in a relationship with someone who had some type of childhood trauma that they're dealing with, the best way is to be supportive, help them maybe get some counseling. If counseling doesn't always work for everyone, find some way for them to channel that energy, however it's manifesting in their life, to some type of other activity, whether it be meditation, journaling, exercise, cooking, you know, just some kind of way to deal with that trauma. But the best way is just to try to be supportive and don't become their therapist. That's not your job. I'm not saying be the therapist. I'm saying to be supportive, but also help them get that professional help.
The only problem with too, especially let's say when we're dealing with, so I think sometimes women are more comfortable with acknowledging the childhood trauma they've been through. I find that men aren't. I dated someone where it kind of, you didn't even know about it until like they started having vulnerability issues. The closer you got, then you started to kind of see. And then it wasn't really one day like some stuff kind of transpired or came out per se. But even some of it was like even like being uncomfortable with like you know, like a touch or affection or something like that. It's kind of like, well, where is this coming from? And then you start to see it. But I feel like the problem with too is there's not really a space for men to say, I've been through this, I've been through that. And we will, in our society where we're set up, we will emasculate you immediately. Oh, something happened. Oh, you're not a man. You know, so instantly. And so I think that's a big concern. And then trying to love or be in a relationship with someone like that. I've seen that be a problem, or even too, I've been with men who were with someone that had went through that already. So then there's certain things they don't do with you. You're like, well, why don't you? Because my last, she didn't like me. So I'm not your last girlfriend, not her. But I get it. But yeah, so we're not going to do that. But I definitely think we don't have a space for men to acknowledge their trauma, especially their childhood trauma, and especially if it's anything in the realm of sexual abuse. Oh, that's a taboo topic.
Right, like black men don't get sexually.
Or they're not allowed to. And actually, they're like black men and brown men are like more inclined to be sexually abused than anybody.
Right.
Now, there's this place in New York right now called Hill House. It's actually exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
It's a place for black men or men of color to go for healing, where they offer yoga. And they
It's like heal, like H-E-A-L.
H-A-U-S.
Okay.
Hill House. So it was started by this guy. He's a Kappa, and he was talking to some of his fraternity brothers about just some stuff that had gone on in his childhood, some stuff with a breakup, some stuff. This is how it started. He actually had reconnected with his father. His dad was absent from his life. They got talking about it, and they started realizing, wow, I got issues with my dad. I got issues with, you know, being able to be vulnerable with my girlfriend and this type of thing. So him and one of his friends, they came together and they created a space for people of color to come and be safe, and specifically men. That was the original kind of focus was on men of color to come in and where they can get the therapy and they can do yoga. This has a juice bar in it. They have workshops and things like that. So It's pretty dope.
Yeah.
I wish we had something like that here.
Well, that's a
There's so many
entrepreneurs in the room. That's a
They're black
therapists. We can
no, but they're black
I
male
want to see more
therapists.
black male therapists, but they're not as
in the
many.
Dallas area. There's one. I can't think of his name. And I'll look it up and I'll put it on our Facebook page with his permission after reaching out to him. But he's located in South Dallas off of Malcolm X.
Okay.
So I mean, there are resources, and I think the thing is we don't look for them. So we could say, well, I want more and I wish there were more, and that's not negating your thoughts, Marie. It's just saying there are a lot of therapists available to us. I think that our first thought is to shy away from getting the help.
Be more vocal about
Right.
And see, I say that though, I have looked for that. So I've looked up African American male therapists, and the query or directory search was not very helpful.
So
at
they
all.
need to
So
do
that-
better with their SEO. And you know, you miss SEO,
that could
so
definitely
you
make
need
a
to-
difference.
You need to reach out to them and help them.
niche right there.
Yeah, help them with their SEO.
So,
My niche is all they can do better. No,
yeah, it's just I feel like it's a lot of trauma that we experience, like I said, from day to day, and things that we don't even quantify as being trauma. Like for black men, you know, just them walking around day to day, and like a young black boy seeing his daddy getting thrown on a police car and being forced to comply, you know, in those type of situations, or like him having to it's just a whole plethora of stuff that we have to deal with culturally on top of like the actual shock. But what I wanted to talk about was how do we respond, where does the healing take place? Because I feel like with me, I experienced sexual abuse as a child, and it was from a family member, and so I didn't say anything to my mother until I got grown, right? And I didn't say anything because I don't know, like I feel like there was already like an emotional barrier in the house, and like it wasn't like a free flowing kind of environment where, you know, if you have like a high like emotional state in a good sense in the house, where people can pick up when something's wrong. Like I wanted my mama to sense that something happened to me. You know what I'm saying? And like she never did, and she never picked up on it. She was intuitive about everything else, but she didn't pick up on that. Like she wasn't intuitive to say, hey, you know, I feel like something's going on. What's up? What's wrong? Right. And she never did that. So fast forward, I'm grown and got a kid, and I just decide to one day come clean and say, hey, Mom, you know, this is what happened to me, and like spell it out for her. And she didn't respond how I thought she would have responded as my mother. Like and I feel like I'm kind of still dealing with that, and I don't know if that's. I think that I don't really. It's so hard when you're trying to process this shit.
Exactly.
I don't know if that is more harmful than the actual trauma itself. Is like the response that you feel like you're going to get
versus the one you
versus
got.
the one you got.
Yeah,
And it's like, damn, I got to deal with this, and I got to deal with this. So I'm like, well, what the hell is wrong with you? Why you don't feel like? Because if it was my kid, you know, told me
I tell you everything.
right,
like I'm knocking all this shit over.
Well, that's was your expectation of what you wanted to happen, and unfortunately, people are human.
Right.
So we can't go into anything with our own preconceived notions or expectations, because you're going to always be let down, because 9 times out of 10 people are not going to react the way you want them to. Mm-hmm. But as far as that, I mean, the healing started when you got it off your chest. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you need to like figure out, does this make me feel sad, or does this make me feel angry? You know, you need to start identifying those emotions that you really feel. Mm-hmm. And then from there, start dealing with those emotions and channeling them in a positive way, so that you can actually live with it.
But do you still keep having a conversation? Like, do you say, you know what, Mama, I really think it was effed up how you handled what I said? Like, do you keep having that conversation, or do you say, you know what, I told you, and I'm just gonna?
I personally would say that you have to tell her. Now, I'm going into counseling. I'm becoming a counselor, but I've gone to counseling.
Okay.
I have mommy issues just like probably every black woman in America. Mm-hmm. So my counselor told me when I went in, I had, you know, me and my mom, you know, we bump heads. We're so much alike that we just bump heads, and then you she raised her voice and then I raised my voice because now I'm grown and I don't have to listen to what you said, you know, that type of situation. So the best piece of advice that she gave to me, that I give to anybody who asks me for advice, is that if this person, when you go to them, you tell them something or you do something towards them and they are set in their ways, they're not going to change, that's who they are, that's their reaction, that's the little box that they live in. If you're going to keep that person in your life or you're going to still have that, have communication with that person and they never change, how can you accept that that's what they are, that's what they did, that's how they're going to react to it? How can you accept that and still be okay and move forward and be healthy? Because your mom's reaction is your mom's reaction, and no matter how hurtful it is to you, that's the way she feels about it, and you can't change that. All you can do is express, hey mom, I told you that so-and-so touched me, and I'm dealing with this trauma, and I have a daughter, and I don't want her to leave my sight because I'm scared somebody's going to touch her, and that type of thing. That's how you're feeling. And then she's just like, well, I never do that. You know, it's just an aloof type of a response. How are you going to deal with that? She may not ever give you the response that you need. So you need to figure out how can you deal with that versus, well, mama, you got to understand where I'm coming from. She may not ever get where you're coming from, but you need to heal you. You can't heal mama. You got to heal you because it happens to you, not mom.
And doesn't that recreate more trauma in yourself when you like Drea said, she feels a certain way. I think for me personally, I gauge how the person, if you react how you react, and I know I'm sharing with you something that's deeply hurtful to me, then that's the last conversation about that you're going to get out of me.
Also, you don't know what I will play a little devil's advocate. You don't know what type of trauma that person has had as well. And that could be, like, I'm not saying your mom was touched, but let's just say she was.
But do you feel like that's a conversation that I should have? Because I have a 15-year-old. Like, do you feel like it would be beneficial if I sat down with my 15-year-old and said, hey, I know you probably don't understand why mama is super overprotective and this, and that, but when I was this age, this happened to me.
Absolutely. I think you should have that conversation. That gives your kids so much insight. Even growing up for me, there were so many things I didn't know about my stepmother, my father's upbringing, where I felt like I was angry with them. Like, I was so angry. I was hurt. I was abandoned. I was this, you weren't there. And then it's like, sometimes people can't love you past their own capacity. So it's like, and it was one of those things that even this weekend was like, me and my dad, bumped heads. And it was like, I can't believe. And it was like, at a certain point, I had to just accept he is who he is. Like, and even there was a situation where when I came to him about something, it was like, well, so long ago, could you never mention it again? So, and this is your father. I'm his only child. I'm here to protect you, but, you know, we don't want to ruin such and such's, like, life or anything. So let's just, And going back to, I'm looking for this parental figure, this protector, this thing. It's like, at a certain point, I have to accept, like, I'm not going to get that from you. And I'm not going to keep beating my ass trying to figure out. Exactly. Capacity is capacity is everything. Like, it's a huge, and that's like a new concept for me at 35 is understanding that some people don't have the capacity to love you. It's not that they're unwilling. They can't or don't know how, which gives you a different kind of, so that's why too, maybe I can still speak to you now or whatever, like, because I realize it's not that you didn't want to, you couldn't. And I'm gonna have to just accept that because I can only change me. I can't, like, and I can beat myself up trying to, because too, you wrestle with it. You try to go back and forth, try to read I just don't understand. You're like an emotional wreck, and they're just like, why do you keep reading? Like, why do you want to keep revisiting this? You're just like, because you're not giving me the answer I need from you. So you're like, let it go.
Deal with that. They may never give you that answer.
And I think we grow up just idolizing our parents a lot.
Because you forget they're human.
Yeah, we forget they're human. They don't display their humanity. And so, you know, it's like, okay, now I need you to put that cape on and you know, and go out and save me and you know, vindicate, do whatever. But you cower in a sense, and it's like, well, damn, I didn't know you was gonna respond like that.
I mean, I've spoken about this openly on like my social media before. Same thing, kind of with my mom. I was angry with my mom until my like early 30s. Growing up, I was in, you know, just playing sports and things like that. And this is kind of like, I think, why you should talk to your daughter about why you're doing the things that you're doing. I played sports. I was in all kinds of stuff at school, and my parents very rarely came to anything. And so I literally just held on to this anger. And every time my mom would make me mad in my adulthood, I would go back to my childhood. Well, she don't love me anyway because she never came to my basketball games. Mm-hmm. And I'm serious. And
I get it.
And so literally, this guy got killed from where I'm from. And we were just talking about, oh, he was such a good person. He never bothered anybody, so on and so forth. Well, back in middle school, I used to give him half of my Big Mac when we would go to McDonald's after the games because he never had money. He wouldn't say that, but I was intuitive to know he had. He'd be like, I'm not hungry. Oh, you're not hungry. We just play ball. We going kids. You hungry. Eat some of this sandwich. So I brought that up to my mom. And my mom goes, yeah, he was a good kid. But, man, back in the day when you used to play all those sports and be and everything, man, my mom told me she made $138 a week, y'all.
Wow.
And she's like, I had to give you $10 a week to go to, because you had 2 games a week. Then I had to put gas in the car, pay bills.
And you had no idea that she was working so hard.
Yeah, she was working at a boat plant. My dad was an orderly at a hospital. Yeah. So, whatever minimum wage back then, I'm pretty sure they may have been making that a little above it, but it wasn't much. And she goes, by the time we go to your game, it was $5 a person. It was 4 of us plus you. We have $20 to get in your games.
Right.
And I was like, I just broke down and started crying. I broke down and started crying. And I was like, Mama, I'm 32. I might have been 32 when we had this conversation. I'm like, I've been married with you for 20 years.
Right.
And she's like, what? I'm like,
you could have told me this a long time ago.
I literally been mad at you because I just thought y'all didn't care nothing about my basketball games.
But parents don't want us to know that they're struggling.
They think that they're protecting us.
Right.
Kids, kids are resilient, and you can be a little honest. So I tell you that story to say, tell your daughter why you do the things that you do because you don't want her resilient. And at 32, be like, man, Mama, I just thought you didn't want me to have no boyfriend.
Yeah. Exactly. Ashley, can you break down some of the mental health diagnoses that are associated with childhood trauma? Would that be too much? You don't have to go into detail, but I know oftentimes, even for me, raising young black males in a predominantly white area, they ignore the childhood trauma that our boys experience, and they want to say, oh, well, maybe it's ADHD or ADD or something like that. Like, for instance, for my son, my youngest son experiences absentee father. So for him, he's had a lot of range of emotions in dealing with that. And then we moved to a new school district, and he had to adjust to that. And when I asked for support and help from the school, they focus mainly on the behavior rather than what's causing the behavior. And my initial conversation is, here are the causes. How can we, work together so that he can be, successful in this school system? And I know we're going to talk later on our shows about the pipeline to prison, but just those associations for our young black males would be good to hear.
Experience what they call generalized anxiety disorder, obviously PTSD that y'all have said throughout the conversation tonight, depression. Some kids, they don't know how to deal with this trauma. They develop eating disorders, stress. It affects us mostly physically, so it starts manifesting, like I said, in eating disorders, cutting behaviors, things like that. So it's just a wide range of things.
It's a huge
trauma can, how it can affect you. It's going to affect each person differently. It manifests itself differently, but definitely things like anxiety, depression, PTSD, stuff like that.
And we're talking about childhood trauma now, but it's like hell. By the time you get to be an adult, you got childhood trauma, you got adult trauma. You probably been sexually abused as a child. You probably been raped as an adult. You probably been had to go through a whole lot of different set of traumas on top of dealing with childhood trauma, and everything is just manifesting. And next thing you know, they just give your ass a diagnosis and some pills, and you're like, damn, how did I get here? How did I get here? Is adulting that hard that it has to come up to this summary where it's I gotta go and pay to see this doctor, and now I have a diagnosis when I thought I was perfectly fine.
I thought I was coping well.
I thought I was doing okay, but when you start doing that questionnaire, and it's do you have impulsive spending habits? do you sometimes have a super high sex drive? Do you have a super low sex drive? Sometimes it's like you're going down the list and it was like, damn, I'm fucked up.
Like, I'm broken. You're like,
I need medicine. I'm sick, and something wrong with me. But, and I feel like it's so many people who are going around who are undiagnosed, who, and not necessarily have to be medicated, but I think it creates like a sense of self-awareness when you do reach out to the people who are professionals in dealing with people who deal with life. You know, and people who go through life and have to deal with childhood trauma, adult trauma, whatever, day to day, you know, just trying to cope with life. And they can tell you that, hey, you're not losing your mind. Like, that's calming. That's super calming
and
enough.
There's just so many negative stigmas, though, associated with, like, and even, too, like, just like when they take certain diagnoses and they make a stereotype out of it. Like, you'll hear, like, bipolar all the time.
Tired of that.
And I'll be honest with you, I've been diagnosed with that, so I've taken it very personal. It doesn't mean I have two personalities. It means that I can be really, really happy, or I can be really, really down or depressed. So sometimes it is like me high off, like they're like, you're just really happy, and you know, I'm out shopping, I'm living my best life, and then even too, maybe the actions within me living my best life, that can manifest in something where the next day I'm like, maybe I went a little too hard.
Right.
And then that anxiety too. Sometimes I joke, I'm like, the anxiety brings everything that you didn't do right that day, that week, anything you're worried about, they all just come to sit down. We're having a meeting.
Right.
Right. So guess what? Like, here's your fears, here's your doubts. We're all just going to sit down together and have a table talk with you. Come here.
And see, I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and mine doesn't necessarily manifest like that at all. Like, it looks completely different. I have identified most of my triggers. Sometimes I can't control them. Like, with my really close friend, when she passed away, like, I knew that was going to send me into a spiral, and it instantly did. And it's like the highs would be like super, super high. Like, I'll feel like I'm on top of the world.
I'm like,
and it's like every high is higher than the one before. And it's like, man, I feel so good. Like, you out shopping, you just feel like you beautiful. And it's like, don't nothing matter. I'll worry about it tomorrow. Hey, y'all, let's go hang out. You know, everything is perfect. But I know, like, in my head, in the back of my head, while I'm feeling this high, I know that this shit's going to crash and fucking burn.
Crash and burn.
Way. Like, I know it's coming, so I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just going to enjoy while it's happening. And then when I crash, it's like, I don't want to shower.
I don't get out the bed.
I don't want to get up. I don't feel like going to work. I don't feel like breathing. Like, I don't, everything is a conscious choice. Like, okay, I gotta go pee. And it's like, do I really have to get out of bed? Okay. And then so you go to the bathroom and you sit on the toilet literally for like 45 minutes. And it's like, well, what's my next move after that? That's literally how the day goes when the depression hits.
Everything
like,
is so
horrible.
Hard.
Yes.
Like, everything, like the simplest task is just like, I have to do that. Like,
it's like, do y'all gotta eat?
But that's why I said, like, I live for the highs.
I don't
the
want
lows,
to feed
I'm like,
y'all.
I don't know. I mean, like, what you need in between. Well, I actually like my highs. I don't know about you. I'm having a lot of fun on my highs.
Right. And I do feel like that bipolar might get tossed around because I feel like it's a super blanket kind of diagnosis. I can see how a lot of people can be you could overdiagnose a lot of people with bipolar by saying, oh, well, you know, if you feel good and feel bad, then it's two, so it could be bipolar.
But it's like, sometimes I feel like it's stereotyped with, like, schizophrenia.
Right.
Well, because you have multiple, actually, no, I don't have multiple personalities.
Right.
But that's like my different types of bipolar. There's a bipolar 1, there's bipolar 2. So it can all vary, which means sometimes your highs may last longer than someone else's. Your lows may last longer than someone else's. Everyone's situation is different. But I do think some of that stuff, I wonder if that childhood trauma does impact that. But then even too, something else someone else that I asked about on here was us talking about why oftentimes you have that trauma and you actually don't discuss it. And I think there's a lot of shame in being a victim. And so I think that's why it takes you so long, because it almost takes hurt. For me, myself, if anything that really goes wrong, and let's say it's something I could have been avoided, somebody did something to me, I'm never proud about it ever. It's never even something like, almost like, okay, like, why you
don't want to come across weak.
Right.
Yes.
And you know, we had the conversation in the group chat, and I was talking, like, I had an instance in college, and like in my head, I was saying, I put myself in that position.
Right.
So that's why it happened. Like, I should have known better than to be, you know, at some boy's house past 11:30, 12 at night. I mean, of course he thought that we was finna have sex. Like, why wouldn't we, right?
Like, you should have let him in. Like, I shouldn't have let him in the house, or like, I don't even know what.
Right.
Like, sometimes like, I don't actually know how he thought we was gonna have sex, but perhaps I shouldn't allow this, because too. Our biggest thing is to avoid being victims, so we try to be accountable. So it's like, how can I be accountable to avoid this in the
Like,
future?
okay, I'm going to just own the situation. That way I don't have to be a
And
victim.
again, that goes kind of back to our discussion about
Consent. I'm telling you, like, consent is
we
crazy.
just need to really start having these conversations. I know it's like, well, how do you fix it? It's not something that gets fixed overnight. It's just something we need to start having these conversations.
And it's
what is consent?
Right.
What do I want? Tell people, male, female, whomever, keep your hands to yourself and let somebody say touch you.
So when I go on a date, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wear my I'm just here for the food shirt. So the person knows I'm just here for the food.
Literally, we'll get into this later, but I put up a post, and it was pertaining to consent, because after we had the conversation about rape-y situations that go down,
and dating.
And when you're dating, like, I am so glad if I ever become single again, I am not dating. Like, I am so scared of these mama sons that's out here. Like, they feel like, I promise you, I had 95 comments, right, from men. And I was going through and deleting all the women's comments because I didn't want nobody to make them feel no type of way. I want y'all to go ahead and say everything that you wanted to say. You know, this is a safe space. It's the locker room. Y'all go ahead and talk. So the question was, if you're dating a girl that's attractive and you're alone with her, how hard is it for you to suppress acting on the urge to have sex with her? All of them had, first of all, they needed variables, so it scared shit out of me. I was like, what variable do you need to like, why can't you be in, why do you have to go into a situation penis first? That's weird. Like, I don't understand why men have to think like they have to succumb to their penis all the time. Like, you don't know how this girl feeling. You don't know what the hell she done went through today. And most of them said that, well, I would try, and if she said no, then I would stop. Do you know how uncomfortable shit gets once you try to have sex with a girl?
And forcibly, or especially if you, well, let's say you even already had a pre-existing. I've had men where I did not want to have sex with them, but maybe at one time we dated and we did have sex. And then all of a sudden that makes it fair game for me to grab.
It's like what we did before. Right.
And then it's like, you almost feel like it's your fault. I remember one of my guy friends like, do you want to go talk to him? And I was like, I don't know if it's fair for you to talk to him because I did date him a little while back.
Right. But it's like, at that type of party no more.
No go at all.
Right.
Like, so I don't know if maybe I should say something like never do this again, kind of.
Like,
just like, no, it doesn't justify, it doesn't make it okay, Marie, for him to blah, blah, blah. But and this is, you're a grown woman. Like,
right. Questioning yourself.
Like,
questioning yourself.
I mean, is that
and it's honestly, like, these are grown men that I really felt like most of them, I felt like I could be okay with leaving my daughter around their son, and it's like, well, hell, if this how your daddy think that, I don't think so, right? You have to have my consent to try to have sex with me, and I don't think they understand that. They feel like it's okay. Well, I mean, I tried. You can say no, but it's like, why you even got to put me in that position in the first place? Like, there are some women that cower in the presence of men who are asserting themselves sexually, because you don't know if she's been sexually abused before. You don't know how she's going to respond to the situation. She might just let you have sex with her and not even want to have sex with you. You haven't had any conversation with her about that, and it's like, oh, well, you feel free as a man to act on your testosterone and your urges to have sex with her. Don't do that. Like, you can literally, like, men don't like having conversations about sex. They just like fucking. Like, they don't want to sit down and talk about, well, They don't want to sit down and have a conversation about, you know what, I've been thinking about, maybe one day we might want to, and it's like it sound good and it be on the movies and shit, but when it come down to it, it's like they just want to feel their way around the situation. Well, maybe it'll happen tonight. We just came from her booty looking good in her dress. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And
they gonna be today.
It's 10 o'clock. She's still at the house. I mean, she was trying to get a little nightcap. Y'all doing all this talking in your head, but ain't nobody talking to me, right? And it's like, then you want to make the situation uncomfortable. It's like, I literally had a guy I went to high school with was like, I'm not reading no hints. I'm finna try to shoot my shot.
Wow. So Drea just gave us a prelude into next week's show, where we will definitely be talking about dating, consent, the male thought process, and we will definitely have some males in the building to kind of
because y'all gonna have to explain
chime in. So we definitely want to get some more feedback from our guest Ashley as it pertains to childhood trauma. So Ashley, one of the questions I had, because we talked about different diagnoses and things of that sort, can you kind of give us some feedback for those who kind of shy away from getting help? You know, what would you suggest and recommend to those watching who haven't taken advantage of getting appropriate mental health care? What would your suggestions be if they just say, hey, I'm not going to do it? For those who just don't want to get the help from a professional, for those who do want to get the help, what your suggestions would be for the steps for them to take?
You feel like everybody needs therapy?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask.
Especially black people.
Well, I have a therapist.
I think we
I
do.
mean, the people.
My therapist got a therapist.
Yes, seriously. If you have meet a therapist that probably doesn't have a therapist, something wrong with that therapist. You know, all therapists need I think we all need someone that we can process thoughts, feelings, emotions.
In a judgment-free zone.
Yes, exactly, in a judgment-free zone. And that's what I get from my therapist. Things that I can't feel vulnerable because I may think, well, that's my best friend. She still might judge me for what I did last night. Well, my therapist over here is ethically and professionally bound not to, even if she's judging me in her head, she has to keep stone faced and not judge me. And she can't go tell anybody. Because if she goes and tells somebody, then I'm going to sue her.
Right.
But seriously,
do you feel like there's a lot of therapists out there or medical professionals who aren't that great?
Yes.
And how hard is the weeding out process?
I mean, at first, when you going to therapy is just like making oh, sorry. I don't know if y'all can hear me. They're saying you can't hear me. So, actually, getting a good therapist and a therapist that will work for you is almost like dating. You know, you have to build some rapport, and there has to be a connection there. I mean, sometimes you have to have something in common with that therapist. Obviously, they're not going to tell you their whole life story, and they're not going to be like, well, I'm from here, and this is my husband, and this is where I live.
Therapist here?
Well, some therapists may.
She might have connected.
She may have connected, but, you know, your therapist is going to have to set some boundaries to respect. But it's a rapport building. You know, do I feel like this person understands where I'm coming from? Sometimes it's a cultural thing. You know, because some therapists, you know, you're trained not to have biases, but we all have innate biases.
We can't help it. You're right. That's very true.
No matter who you are. But my biggest thing is to find someone that you quote unquote vibing with and that you feel comfortable with. They make you feel comfortable so that you can open up and explore and discuss those things that are traumatic to you, that are making you be vulnerable, that do make you cry. Because I think sometimes just the best therapy is just to cry it out sometimes. So you need to be able to be in a safe environment, a judge-free environment that you can, you know, get to working on how do I deal with these emotions, how do I unpack these feelings, how do I, you know, I didn't even know that I scream and yell at people because, you know, I had something that happened to me when I was a kid, and it's just like, it's my defense mechanism. It's just like, I'm going to get you before you get me. You know, just that environment to be able to do that and to discover why you do these things and how you can deal better with those things.
And just
I have a question. I went to a therapist before, and immediately after I explained my situation to her, she gave me her opinion on the situation of what I should do. Basically telling me you should end the relationship, you should stop dealing with the situation. And for me, it immediately cut off, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Communicate, like I didn't want to deal with her anymore because I felt like she hadn't even listened to my story completely, and she had already offered me her opinion versus hearing me out and trying to let me work through the topics. Do you think that it's a good idea for therapists to immediately tell you what it is that you should do versus hearing you out? What is the role of a therapist in those type of situations?
It's not.
They don't give you
I've never seen it.
suggestions.
That's not a coach or something.
So
Yeah.
what if you tell them about the person? I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me tell you.
We all
We got all the
But,
questions.
no, but I mean, that's not your therapist's job. The therapist's job is to help you navigate those feelings and how to help you
Make your own
decision. Make the best decision for you. Obviously, a therapist is not going to guide you down the road to say, okay, well, you got beat, so let's start doing crack to deal with it. No, we're not going to.
So
You're not going
cocaine,
to
make it all better.
Nobody.
Have a little drink or something.
Right.
Get you a
But
fucking drink.
therapist is going to help you find a positive, healthy way to navigate whatever issue that you came in that you're trying to deal with. It's not a therapist's job, a counselor's job, a psychologist's job, or whatever to tell you what to do with your life. That's unethical. Like they shouldn't do that.
That is crazy.
I have a question,
Okay,
if that's okay.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so what if
Fired.
in that conversation you're in a relationship that you don't realize is emotionally abusive, and or is problematic and will be long term if you continue in that relationship, and the therapist gives advice on that. I mean, because I had a therapist that told me that she felt that person was not good for me based on the things that I told her about that person and how they treated me. And it turned out to be very true. And had I listened to her, I would have saved myself some years and some time. But what I did is I went back and told that person. And then he had a rebuttal for everything that she had to say.
And that's why I think that a therapist it's crazy that a therapist would even give a recommendation because that's exactly what's going to happen every time. Like it's like when you tell your kid, "Hey, go do this," and then they turn around and then they do the exact opposite of what you tell them to do.
I think I should listen to homegirl.
Well, hindsight, you think that, right?
Giving you just flat out.
She should have left you there,
right?
But
probing
even
questions.
if she thinks that may be.
It's like
if we can see that somebody giving you black eyes every night, right? But you come in with makeup every day from work and said that they really did. As a therapist, I can't say, well, so-and-so over there beating on you. But I can say something about, I know this X, Y, and Z. What your makeup, lead you and guide you to realize, hey,
right, and say, do you feel like that's an active display of love?
Right.
I think maybe she said it in those ways, but she also said it directly, and she led.
But
I think I asked too. I was like, "What you think?"
I feel like that a lot of
and I said it real loud too.
How does that make you feel?
I said, "What did you think about it?"
I think a lot of, but I also feel like sometimes too people mix things up. Like there's a life coach, there are differences. There's a clinical therapist, there's a psychiatrist. Like even one time, my therapist has never led me down a road. But I will say, I'll say this. So I'm biracial, right? My mother's white. We don't always, the way I speak, so oftentimes she takes things a certain way. The most advice I ever got was she said, use your little interview white voice when you talk to her. Right. That way you can get through it. What you're saying to her, I see exactly, there's nothing wrong with what you're saying, but because of her being, who she is, she's taking it that way because she doesn't like your tone. So use the voice you use when you walk in an interview. So the same shit didn't work. Then I kind of got pissed off about that.
Really,
but I've never seen a therapist just lead you, because even too, if you're like, you have a relative that's in love with somebody and you like, he ain't shit,
right?
She's probably not gonna talk to you after a while. She's like, at that point now you ran them off.
Listen, I didn't have a best friend stop talking to me because I do one shit and I told her, so I get it. But I feel like a lot of times is that we attract trauma because we're traumatized, right? And so we get into these relationships and he broken, you broken, and both of y'all trying to fix each other. Right, and it's like, and then all of a sudden, like that manifests more trauma, right? And so it's like, well, to vacate the relationship when you realize that you're both broken, or should there be?
I
think
you should absolutely, positively. You always do what's best for you in this life. I'm a strong advocate of I came in this world by myself. I'm leaving by myself. So I'm going to do what's best for
But
me.
I've literally seen people.
I'm not going to do something that's detrimental to you. But if it's best for me to get out of here to save myself, save my physical, my mental, my spiritual, I'm getting out of here.
But I've seen people be in relationships and they seem functional, but on the surface level, but when you tap into it, like there's a whole lot of underlying dysfunction, and it might be like one person or might be seeking help, or one person might not even realize that they have an issue. And so now it's like, well, and then you start introducing the family dynamic. You start having kids by this person. It's easy to walk away from somebody.
Enable the person,
right?
And different things like
and
that.
it's easy to walk away from somebody that you don't have kids with. But you have somebody that you have kids with and that you started a whole life with, and you don't realize that you have trauma until you're like 30-something years old, and you look around and it's like.
But then you create trauma for your children when you
Exactly.
stay in that situation.
But you might feel like you're creating trauma with for your children if you leave the situation.
But I feel like sometimes
Well, ask
like
the kids how they feel.
Sometimes it's not necessarily a lose-lose situation, but in hindsight, I think like if I'm really going through something, and I've like my recent experiences, I'm going through something, you going through something. And at the end of the day, how you're acting, how you're treating me, I'm gonna respond to your shit. So it's gonna turn volatile. And at a certain point, we need to go our separate ways until you fix you, because you're gonna still do all the same things you were doing, and I'm still gonna respond, which is gonna hit, like it's gonna just keep just bubbling up. So it's almost like one of those things. Like I feel like one thing we do struggle with is letting go.
Right.
It's so hard to let go, and even to that shared trauma, that even is part of our relationship. We've
Yes.
been through so much.
Right.
Let it go.
Right.
But that is so, and it's easier said than
It's
done.
gonna
Easier
do more
said than
damage to
done.
the children anyway, staying together.
They watching it.
They watch that, then they grow up and think that that's
Right,
Normal.
and they think it's normal for, you know, a man to talk to a woman like that, or, you know, for mama to wild out and be crying all the time, and, you know, it's like we start to normalize all of these things, but but at the same time, like, we just develop, like, all of these issues and symptoms, and it starts to compound, and we start to pass it along, and it's like, at what point do we become, like, accountable and responsible, and it be okay for us to not be okay?
I feel like it's that awareness. Even for me, I want to say like the trigger for my divorce. And like we just holding on, we wasn't even together. He almost in a relationship. I'm almost in a relationship. We just one day my daughter was like, "So does such and such have a wife too?" What? And so at that point I realized like I'm over here like yes I'm still engaged. Like me and my ex-husband we're together. We do family photos. We do this and that. And it was like I'm setting a piss poor example. Like my daughter thinks that this is acceptable. This is like I've normalized this because going back to two, I'm trying to hold on to my marriage because one is they act as if it's so special for us to get married as black women. Like you never get married, so you don't want to let go of your husband. But it's like this is a dead ass relationship. I'm just trying to hold on to it for the title or whatever else. And it was kind of like you know what the best thing I can do is actually show my kids how to gracefully walk away. And pick up the pieces and start over my life.
Right.
And like that's the best thing I can do for them. It's for them to see me overcome. Exactly.
Right. Like you're able to. And I always apply Marie because I feel like her and her ex-husband are weirdos. Like they co-parent in a way that you only see like maybe on TV, but not really. And like they so cool, they hang out together, and like they go like, oh, I'm hanging out with his mom. Like they still have like this really respectful relationship, and I'm like, how you do that? Should be the norm.
Right, exactly. Well, Kay said her new line is, "This is where I get off," and as far as ending dead end relationships, and I'm gonna say my line is. Bob the Builder, can we fix it? No, we can't. That's what I was like. No, we can't.
Get off that. That's definitely.
Can we fix it? No, we
when
can't.
you're broken and you haven't fixed yourself, and even though you might recognize the trauma, you haven't worked on it, and you're with someone who's broken. And I just feel like it sounds easy to try to leave the relationship, especially before kids, but once you start having kids, like you disrupted more than just your household. You disrupted a lot of other people's lives as well.
From experience as the child in that kind of household, it is best that the parents in that situation so that it does not affect the children, because the things that any more than it already has. I love my parents, I respect my parents, but the things that I saw and experienced, and I know a lot of people thought we were the Huxtables, and they think because I got a lot of Jordans and all of that, and my parents were there, that there was nothing that went on that wasn't great in our home. But that's just very far from the truth. And I remember going to my mom and saying, we can live here in some apartments. And I didn't even know what living in an apartment was at that time because we'd always lived in houses. But it was so bad for me that when I was in middle school that, can we move?
can we go live here? I'll help with this. I'll do this. And I was a daddy's girl. So to be a daddy's girl and say, I don't want to live in this house like this with how these things are going. And my parents actually stayed together, I want to say, 3 or 4 more years after that. So it's more stuff I had to see, and I'm already seeing and hearing and knowing all of this stuff because I was very nosy. Number one, so I know everything y'all are arguing about. I know everything that's going on. Y'all think I'm asleep? I got that cup to the door. What's going on?
I feel like we discount our children a whole lot.
Right.
Because one, children can pick up on energy in a room faster than anybody. Like kids know when there's something going on. And 9 times out of 10, when you think you're talking around them, they know exactly what the hell you're talking about. They know exactly what you're doing.
But you done spelled it out.
Right.
And my mom, her thing was we grew up with our dad, so she didn't want my little brother to grow up without him. And I'm like, but I mean, he ain't dead. Right. He's still alive. So I mean, there can still be a relationship. I just wish people would listen to me.
And I just feel like we pass along that because I feel like even with my parents' generation, you notice you don't get divorced. Like you just don't because one, you're because 9 times out of 10 it might have been like because our papas had kids down the street or whatever, and so but it's like you never get divorced because one, you let somebody else win. And you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to, just make it work no matter what. And I feel like I've seen like so much go on, and I don't even like. Sometimes you have to question like, well, were them niggas even happy?
Right.
Like, like I ain't never seen them hug.
And then sometimes you recognize like as an adult, like y'all aren't happy.
Right, it's like, I didn't see y'all hug each other or kiss each other, and now that's really weird when I got in relationships and people try to hug and kiss me because affection wasn't normal. And so it's like, well, were y'all even happy? Like,
Well, wait, I have a question because one of our commenters, and I'm going to ask Ashley when it comes to religion and spirituality in the black community, because I think one of our commenters, Thomas, I'm using my 2020, he said pray about it, then talk to the kids. Is that what that says back there?
No, that's my uncle. He said talk to my mom.
Oh, pray about pray about it, talk to your mom. But okay, but still with the pray about it thing. Why is that? And no offense to Uncle Thomas, and I hate that your name is Uncle Tom. But at any rate, no offense to his suggestion. But Ashley, why do you think that that's always or oftentimes the first thought for us in the black community is pray about it?
Because God brought us from slavery, so He gonna bring you through this.
And even that's something we talk about bringing professionals.
But everybody doesn't believe in God. Everybody does. Well, everybody is not a Christian.
But do you even feel like even if you're a Christian, like you still have common sense, right? And like
I believe that.
And like you can't like.
My Facebook status was yesterday. Day before yesterday, prayer works, but so does therapy.
Right.
Like do both.
Do both. But prayer doesn't work for everybody because everyone doesn't believe. So what are you praying for? And then also, everybody doesn't know how to pray, and they don't know what to pray for, and to be specific. I almost said Pacific. You You're right. You have to be specific in those prayers if that is what you believe. But prayer doesn't work for everybody because everybody doesn't believe in prayer. And I do believe that just really in the it really does go back to slavery, in that that our ancestors had to believe in something, and that somebody was going to come and bring them out. And I'm not going to go to because now I'm going to have to go personal in my own profession. I'm going to stay professional. And they believe that somebody came. I did not say that. Some people believe that there was an entity that brought them through. Yeah. And whatever that
they have to have a savior.
That
we needed saving.
Yeah, they needed. Yeah, something brought them through the strife that they were going through, and they just passed that down, and it's been passed down from generation to generation. It's just ingrained in our culture and in
and that's what I said about our survival.
Right.
And we don't feel like we deserve heaven right now. We have to wait for it later. We just have to suffer now. Suffer now, wait for heaven later. Right. I don't want mine now.
So that's run me mine today. Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna come pick it up.
Basically, I feel like that's a personal. There's no scientific study that said it goes back to slavery. Just my personal opinion.
Though. It's fact.
That when our ancestors were brought over on ships, they believed in many different things, and once they got here, they were given other things.
Survival of the good.
Some believe in. They believe in different things, and they felt like eventually this brought us through, and whatever entity that they were believing in brought them through. They passed that down, and we just need to pray to that entity, and everything will be okay. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's not just about prayer. Sometimes it's a chemical imbalance. And you know how y'all said that there are psychologists and psychiatrists and therapists and so on and so forth. You may have to go to a doctor, a medical doctor, or a psychiatrist that can prescribe you something that can help you with that chemical imbalance that's going on inside your body.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave it at that and not touch that anymore with.
That's like a whole other
religion.
That's a whole other.
I did throw it in and ask that question.
Ken made the comment that religion is childhood trauma. And it does. It's so many layers to being black. Oh my God! We got Jesus until we're blue in the face, and it's like I said, it's like we have to suffer now. That's all we know is suffering. And even you don't have to. You shouldn't get divorced, right? You can't ever get divorced. It's in the Bible, and you should just suffer and just wait for heaven later.
They call that a spiritual warfare.
I just be rationalizing. Well, I didn't really have a conversation with God when I chose this set individual, so let's start there. And I think that religion is a tool. Period. It's always been used as a tool. The Book of Eli, to me, I always watch the movie, and it just really reminds me how religion can be used as a tool to basically keep the masses at bay. Does that not mean I believe in? I definitely believe in a higher power, but I'm not about to dispute it, argue it, explain. I don't necessarily think everything in the book is valid. So it's I'm gonna just take what I need and keep it moving. But
I just don't think that we need to always. I think if you feel because the thing is, if you are
anything that can work to help you
do what works.
Don't ignore yourself. If all of your alarms are going off and everything in you is telling you that this ain't working, you can pray about it if you want to, but you already know what you need to do, right? And I don't know what confirmation you need to have outside of actually moving on that. But if everything inside of you is telling you, hey, this ain't working for me, you need to end this relationship or go do something else, then you should listen to yourself.
I agree.
I don't think our prayer's going to change that.
But then going back to you could pray, and then you realize that ain't work. So you know what? That next, here's a checklist. Okay, so I tried that didn't work. Because really, I feel like it's about doing everything in your power to get to that good place. And so whatever that takes, and then going back to it could be prayer, it could be meditation, it could be therapy, it could be And even for me, meditation is probably a thing for me because I'm always I'm a little bit of everywhere. Okay, no, you just need to sit still.
And then religion doesn't always
stay in one place.
Doesn't always help you when it comes to mental health. They want to pray away. If you do have bipolar or schizophrenia or whatever, they feel like that's a demon and they have to pray it away. And it's well, if my leg is visibly broken, you would tell me to go to a hospital. But since you can't see that my mind is visibly broken, then you're going to say that I'm struggling with something spiritually. When, no, I need some damn medication. Right?
Definitely an invisible disability.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's why I like to do reposition. If God is the author of all things, and that means too,
He is inside of that people.
He's going to use that therapist. That they're the vessel that God is sent to help you. Okay?
Sister such and such is going to take y'all to the altar on Sunday. And on that note, we are coming to an end with this week's show of 30-something podcast. We want you guys to like, share, and definitely subscribe to our YouTube page. And gentlemen, if you want to be a guest on next week's show, where we will be talking about dating and relationships and consent and things of that sort, please send us a message. Thank you guys for tuning in. I am going to give the final thoughts on childhood trauma to our lovely guest. She what? You didn't tell me this beforehand. You just share with us, hey, your recommendations on, for those. You kind of said it, journaling. You were kind of getting into it. What they can do.
Okay, so
close us out.
Any type of trauma, I would suggest the best way to deal with it is what's going to work for you. Whether it be therapy, whether it be prayer, whether it be church, whether it's yoga, whether it's journaling, whether it's talking to a friend about it, You just need to do what's best for you and know, what's going to be the healthiest for you. That's
And can
my
you tell
thoughts.
people how to reach you, like your social media?
If you want them to reach
if
you.
you want them
Or business.
to reach out to you, or where
Well,
your business is located.
Well, my business is called Total Therapies and Wellness. Currently, I'm not doing any psychotherapy currently. We're just doing therapy, like I said, recreational therapy, music, the massage, and quiet.
Is that for like children with autism? Okay, excellent, because I have 2 people to recommend. See?
Yeah, and then we also work with children who have mental illnesses. Currently, we work through 2 Medicaid waiver programs here in Texas. But we do also take private pay. Oh, how do you reach us?
Yeah.
You can reach us at Ashley, that's ASHLEE, at Total, TOTAL, therapies, with the IESTX.com.
Awesome.
So info, what is that? Ashley at
Yeah, that's
TotalTherapieTexas.com. Or info, Texas.
And we'll post it on our social media so
Definitely.
you guys can have it as well. If you have a website, then we can post that as well. But we do want to thank you for coming in, and we'll bring you back in when we have our
Thanks for having me,
pipeline to
guys.
prison conversation.
Yes.
You can help us with that. But we will see y'all next week, and thank y'all. Y'all hung around the whole time.
At 8:30 something.
We love y'all. See y'all
Good night.
later.
Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you
I
for
hope
coming.
It feels so lovely to be here tonight. What a beautiful art. Give yourself some round of applause. You're so lovely. Everyone should love it. And while you're in the clapping mood, I'd like to give a big round of applause to my band.